The root of all evil and the desire to be rich in 1 Timothy 6 are some of the most quoted and misquoted Bible passages about money. In this video, we'll look carefully at what Paul said and didn't say in his famous warning to Timothy. All that coming up. Joseph Clampett here with Stewardship.com, bringing you the best biblical information on money to help you reach your God-given potential. Today we're looking at Paul's teaching on money and riches in 1 Timothy chapter 6. So first, let's zoom out and look at the big picture in this passage. Paul is instructing Timothy about certain false teachers who are corrupting their listeners in the church. Paul shares a lot of different characteristics of these teachers and of the people they're corrupting, but his main focus in this passage is on one characteristic, just one characteristic out of those many, which kind of makes the listeners most vulnerable to the bad teaching that they're hearing. So what is that characteristic? The problem is that these people imagine godliness is a means of gain. So for a big part of this passage, Paul is going to provide a rebuttal against that statement. So he has four main points in his rebuttal. Number one is that we brought nothing into the world and we can take nothing out of it. We didn't come out of our mother's womb holding a dollar bill or holding anything else, a set of car keys. We came with nothing, and when we die, when people are put in a casket into the ground, they really aren't taking things with them. Plenty of people have tried to do that, but actually that person's never leaving with their stuff. They leave it all behind. So that's Paul's first point. Why desire to gain all this stuff when you can't take it with you and it's not actually an intrinsic part of you that you were born with? Okay, his second point. We can be content with food and clothing. Would you rather live in this state of want, desire, lack, or would you rather be content? Would you rather be happy with what you have, with simple needs like food and clothing? Isn't that so much better to live that way? His third point is that the desire to be rich leads to all kinds of problems. So he says it's a temptation and a snare. It leads to senseless and harmful desires, and it even leads to ruin and destruction. The fourth point that Paul makes is similar. So here he rephrases it, he says the love of money. So desire to be rich, his third point, and the love of money, his fourth point, kind of just rephrasing of the same thing. He says the love of money is the root of all kinds of evils. It leads people to wander from the faith, and those who have had the love of money have pierced themselves with many pangs. So the love of money leads to a sort of self-sabotage where people are causing themselves pain. They're causing themselves maybe to make really poor decisions because of that love and that desire. Now note here this famous statement, money is the root of all evil. That's not what Paul is saying. He's saying the love of money is the root of all evil. So on one hand, we can think of money for its own sake versus money as a tool to do good. Now, in just a second, I want to make a more concrete analogy that will clarify the right attitude to money. But first, I want to ask you, is it even possible to have riches without desiring them? Please let me know in the comments section below. Okay, so this analogy, imagine there's a carpenter. No, there's 3 different carpenters, and they each have different attitudes towards their tools. So carpenter A, he doesn't have any tools at all. He's afraid of the tools because they're sharp, because accidents happen, and he might lose a finger, he might lose an arm, crazy things can happen with these sharp saws. And so he's become really good at building everything just with his bare hands. It takes him a lot of time, no matter what he's building, it takes him forever, but he avoids the dangers of the tools. Carpenter B, on the other hand, he accumulates lots of tools. He loves having tools. Actually, he loves his tools so much that they sit in his storage shed, and he polishes them. He goes in to look at them sometimes, but he never takes them out of there. He never takes them out. He never uses those tools to build anything. So in practice, his carpentry is done just like person A. He does everything with his bare hands in a really inefficient way because he's afraid to use his tools. Now, Carpenter C, he buys the tools he needs for each job. He takes care of them as best he can, but he knows that over time there's wear and tear, tools get old, they get dull, occasionally he needs to buy new ones. But he's okay with that. He also understands there's risks and there's, the possibility of injury with tools. But again, he accepts those risks because he knows that without those tools, his work is going to take forever and ever, every single job. So Carpenter C is out there. He's completing his work so much faster than Carpenters A and B. He's so much faster, he's so much more efficient because he has the right tools for the job. Now I think it's clear how this analogy applies to money. We can be people who are afraid of money and we avoid it at all costs because of the dangers, the sort of dangers even that Paul mentions in this passage. We can also be people who accumulate money, who store it up in a bank or some account where it just sits there and we don't even know what it's doing. Maybe just every once in a while we kind of pull up that number and look at that number and, kind of clutch it to ourselves like Gollum in Lord of the Rings, our precious, but we don't ever use it. We don't ever do anything with it. That's like Carpenter B. Or we can be people who use money as needed to make a bigger impact in the world, going in between being afraid of its dangers and the risks that are involved in it on one side, and on the other side, holding it just for our own good, our own status or security. We can use it as needed and let it go as needed. If we see somebody in more need of it than us, we can give it to them. We don't have to cling to it. And I think sometimes everything within us wants to cling to money for those reasons. It can be safety, status, satisfaction. But I know that you can do better. You can master money as a tool. You can remain content with what you have even while you level up your financial knowledge and your financial resources to make a bigger impact on the world. Thanks for watching. Please hit the like button if you got value from this video, and we'll see you in the next one.